pandemic started, most of the activism we now see is through social media. Instagram is the home to visually appealing infographics, and a quick share onto our Insta stories can make many of us feel as though we've done enough. Campaigners and activists spend years, often dedicating entire lives to certain global, national or even local issues, and for many, the sharing of infographics can diminish their work. Infographics on Instagram feature very serious and often triggering topics presented in a colourful and exciting manner in order to explain complex issues. It can be worthwhile. For international issues, Instagram infographics give a platform to topics that aren't receiving enough Western media coverage, such as End SARS in Nigeria, which calls for the disbanding of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, as well as the farmers' protests in India. Sharing posts and images may educate more people, but what does it actually do to help the root cause? And does it risk glamorising traumatic events and oversimplifying them? Could it add to the spread of misinformation? So, does social media actually help or hinder campaigning? I spoke to Pablo O'Hana, a campaigner who's been involved in numerous campaigns such as the Referendum Remain campaign in 2016, as well as general elections, local elections, European elections, and campaigns to legalise abortion in both the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland.
All the campaigns I've ever worked on have required social media to some degree and activism through it, which has been really important. One of the most interesting examples of this is actually the EU referendum, because the Leave campaign were exceptionally effective at mobilising and activating their base. Obviously, Remain lost in the EU referendum, and what happened actually is that it was almost as if the mobilisation switched, and so Remainers went from being kind of in their armchairs, not really doing an awful lot, to suddenly very, very active. And when we had the People's Vote March, a campaign through sort of marching through London for a second referendum, we had over 1 million people turn out to that, and that was the largest march in British history. And that was totally activated through social media. The reason I champion social media so much in campaigning is because it's so good at activating and organising, and that's what it should be used for. It shouldn't be used for just posting something and getting, some likes for it. It should be used for connecting people in campaign and getting them out to do the work that needs to be done to win the campaign. During the 2019 election campaign, Jo Swinson was the first woman leader of the Liberal Democrats, and whether regardless of what you think of her or the party, that's a big deal and should have been celebrated. And actually what happened is there were constant stories swirling about, there was a completely bizarre story about her hating squirrels. The social media content around her was just awful. I mean, really sickening to look at. All of the top searches for Jo Swinson were about her breast size, or about what she was wearing, or about what her kids were going to do, or whatever it was, because that immediately impacted our campaign, because people will know, oh, she's just a woman, right? She's never going to be Prime Minister. I think there needs to be, I do think in terms of social media, there needs to be a bit more of a responsibility from platforms to manage that, because the misinformation can be pretty damaging.